Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Vasudeva sutam devam Kamsa chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnang Vande Jagatgurum. So in the last class, if you remember just before the break, we were in the third chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita, where we were discussing the concept of Yajna. As we will find that in Bhagavad Gita, the concept of Yajna, which has been discussed, is actually having a much more all-encompassing view. Generally, Yajna means the fire sacrifice. So what the fire sacrifice is for, as in the Vedic period, in the Karma Kanda, we find the idea of fire sacrifice, that you are offering oblations to the fire. Fire is just like the mouth of the devas, the gods. All the various gods, the concepts of the divinities in the Vedic period we find is a personification of the nature, like the rain, the Pavan Devata. So Indra, the who gives rain. So all these yajnas, the concept was that whatever maybe the purpose, it's a purpose that I have some desires to be fulfilled. For my own, this cultivation of land, I need more rain. Or even it may be some other desires, that someone is childless, they want children. So for that, they are offering oblations to the fire. And the fire takes those oblations, fire is the mouth of the devas, to all those devas, and they are pleased. And in return, they will be showering the blessings. So it's a question of give and take. So it's a very limited idea of yajna. But in the Vedic period, we will find in the later Vedic literature, like in the Shatapatha Brahmana, this idea of yajna has been much more enlarged. It is encompassing what? That the ultimate reality, the Brahman, who has projected this universe, while projecting this universe, which is the expression of Shakti, of energy. What I find is this universe is nothing but Shakti, energy and energy alone. As even science will say that energy and matter is interconvertible. Everything can be resolved back to some energy, to some fields. And Vedanta says that yes, that Shakti, which has came from, is a projection of Brahman. And then there's a wonderful concept. It we find in other religions also, the same idea, that energy, that Shakti, which is finding expression as the creation, is not chaotic. There is a wonderful balance within it. They follow certain universal laws. To give an example, that the nuclear bomb, initially which was used for explosion to destroy, the same nuclear energy, when it is used within a nuclear reactor, through the process of controlled fusion or fission, then that same energy, instead of destruction, can give us energy for our various fuels, our energy for lighting our house. So it is used in some constructive purpose. The same destructive energy, when it is controlled, it can be used for some constructive purposes. So similarly, the original, the creation, when it happened, when the ultimate conscious principle found expression as energy, it was not chaotic. It found expression as rhythm. As you will find, the vachakas are very important in Sanskrit. Om represents the ultimate reality, the Brahman, which finds expression as Shakti. The vachaka of Shakti is Rim, as Rim, Shakti. And that Rim again finds expression as Rhythm. The literal translation of Rhythm is Satyam, is truth. But actually the meaning of Rhythm is laws. That the entire creation is bound by certain laws. There's a very famous quotation of Einstein. What he says, that the most incomprehensible fact of the universe is that it is comprehensible. The most incomprehensible fact of the universe is that it is comprehensible. What he's saying, that that we as a human being is such a small creature, as if crawling on the surface of the earth. Compared to us, the universe is immense. We are just insignificant. But see the wonder, we, those who are physically something insignificant, but with our mind, we, with the modern technology, with the science, we are deciphering, unfolding the mysteries of the nature more and more. Not only that, our technology is helping us to land a satellite on the surface of the Mars. And with the rovers, it is going on the Mars surface. How is it possible? Why this something which is supposed to be incomprehensible, so vast, has become comprehensible? Because there are some universal laws. Like in the case of landing a satellite in the Mars, what's the law? The basic law, the law of gravitation. That we know the same law of gravitation which is valid here is valid anywhere. This speaks of the universality, that the energy, gravitation is also a form of energy. It is not something chaotic. It is finding expression in some rhythm. That rhythm, from the word rhythm, the English word rhythm, you will find very similar. All these words, if you go back to the root, you will find there has so much similarity. That from rhythm, from this rhythm, the universe is sustained, is being sustained. You'll find that all these laws are so much universal. But in science, we are restricting ourselves only to the physical laws. But as a human being, there are some laws, some commandments which do guide our life. Nowadays, with the development of science, technology, sometimes we say that those are all relative. They were the creation of the church, of organized religion. We may follow them, we may not follow them. And that's the thing which was spoken, which was something related to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna's reply was wonderful. When someone asked, is there something called absolute truth? All the truth seems to be relative. Is there something absolute truth? Sri Ramakrishna, in his usual casual way, as he was not educated in a formal way, in the present sense of education, he was illiterate, almost illiterate. So but he was a man of realization. His answers were something very simple but very profound. What he replied is something wonderful. He told, yes, there is something called absolute truth. And then instead of speaking in some abstruse language, he gave a very simple example. That Lonka khele, in Bengali, he's saying Lonka khele jhal lagbe. That if you taste chili, you're bound to have that hot sensation. Now you may say, what's this answer? The answer is something wonderful. That when you're having your meals, there are some chilies kept in a plate. And now it is your choice. You may take the chili and have your food along with the chili, or you may not. It is your choice. But I will have the chili and I won't have that hot sensation. Is it ever possible? No. So laws are laws. If laws can be broken, they cannot be laws. So there are some laws which I may follow, which I may not follow. But the result that follows, that I cannot change. That is something fixed. If I don't take chili, well, I don't have that hot sensation. But if I have the chili, I'm bound to have that hot sensation. So what Sri Ramakrishna is saying is wonderful, that there is something called absolute truth. When the creation happens, it happens following certain laws, whether it is physical laws or moral laws. It follows that. Now it's up to us as a human being. Other creatures were guided by instincts, but for us, rationality has taken the place of instinct. So the question of choice comes. We may not. Kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum. In Sanskrit, they use these three terms. I may do, kartum, akartum, I may not do. Or I may do in a different way, not the way which you are prescribing. So kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum. So choice is mine. But after choosing, know it for certain, the result is fixed. That you cannot break. And there it's fixed of the commandments, of the do's and don'ts, the vidhis and nishedas, which we find in all the perennial religions. It is there in some form or other. So we cannot avert the results which follow from it. So here in Bhagavad Gita, they're speaking of one such basic law behind the organic creation. That is the not only organic, the tentative creation. What is that? The idea of give and take. The idea of interdependent co-arising, as has been spoken of in Buddhism, that nothing can stand in this universe segregated separately. Everything is interdependent. In Bhagavatam, we find that Krishna has taken just a lump of soil. Like any children, the children have the habit that, that whatever they get, they will put in their mouth. So he has put a lump of soil in his mouth. And his mother Yashoda, in the attempt to get out, he was asking Krishna to spit out that lump of clay, but he was not willing. He was still keeping it in his mouth. And the mother came and pressed his cheeks to forcefully open up the mouth. And when the mouth was opened, instead of seeing the clay, what she saw was the entire universe. And we say these are all this mystical stories with all mythological aspects. It may have no sense. But sometimes we say that most probably we don't have the eyes of Yashoda. If we had eyes of the Yashoda, most probably we could also have seen the entire universe in that lump of clay. You may say, how? So now the lump of clay is not something segregated from the entire universe. Where the clay is there, if you go to Central Australia where it's desert, you won't get soil. It's all sand and sand all over. How the soil comes into existence? There must be some organic matter where life is. The plants, the trees, they die, they decompose, they mix with the soil in gradual course, with the sand, in gradual course, they become soil. The soil, the clay, is the proof that there is some organic matter. Without organic matter, there cannot be soil. So where you have a lump of clay, it means there was a tree. Where the tree is, it proves what? There is sun. Without sun, I cannot think of the tree. Where the tree is, through the roots, it is taking the water, the minerals. Not a single mineral has been created on this earth. We are all stardust. It is in the core of the star, these minerals, all these various metals are created. And this stardust is nothing which has all conglomerated as this earth. And it speaks of the interdependence of the entire universe. If you can really have the eyes of Yashoda, you can see in that lump of clay, the sun, the stars, the entire universe. Because nothing is separate. So that's the idea of Yajna, the give and take. When this creation comes into existence, everything has to coalesce, cooperate, synergize to make the thing happen. Then only the creation can be sustained. That's why a few slokas early we have studied that saha yajna praja srishtva. When the creation happened, when the Lord created this universe, he created along with saha yajna, along with this concept of yajna, that you have to relate with each other. Just see from that basic limited idea of yajna as a fire sacrifice, how it has now enlarged to encompass our entire existence. that now even in biology we will find there's an idea. It's not the Darwin's theory of evolution was misinterpreted as what? A struggle for existence means there is bound to be difference, this variation among the various species and subspecies, and those who are equipped to fight with the nature, they will thrive, others will become extinct. So it speaks of competition. And that's if we have trying to understand it in a surface level, it speaks only of competition. And that's what happened in the European country before the pre-world wars. You know, it is a wrong interpretation of the Darwin theory of evolution, which has resulted in Hitler at last. How you will say? A famous philosopher, the German philosopher Nietzsche, he started interpreting this Darwin's theory as this struggle means. So now gods, we did not have to believe in that evolution is, even religion believes, even science believes. But how evolution has happened, for that, the religion speaks of some, that from the top, that there is some God or consciousness, whatever it, from there it has happened. So it speaks of something which you find in your mythological stories. And now Nietzsche started saying for the evolution as per Darwin's theory, you need not have to relate to the mythologies of the religion, the mythologies of the religion. Go to the history. What you will find, it is the Greeks, the Romans, the cruel, extremely cruel, who were in thirst for power, who were in the what you say, the peak of civilization. What a tremendous, the zenith of civilization we had. The archaeological findings will show how they have been in the top of the world. It's only through exploitation. So what it speaks, that there is going to be difference among the species, various species, even among the humans, all are not same. Those who are more well equipped biologically, they can accelerate the process of evolution by willfully getting rid of those who are so-called not up to the mark. They will get annihilated. By the way, the nature will annihilate them. Why not accelerate the process and and you will find that colonialization, everything was justified with that type of idea. It's a very, very dangerous idea. When Swami Vivekananda was going through the West, when everyone was pointing how these nations are flourishing, just see. Swamiji, just with his intent eyes, he told, what I am seeing is something different. I am seeing the entire Europe is just sitting on the top of a volcano, just to explode anytime. No one could understand. Just see, Swami Vivekananda passed away in 1902. In those days, no one has thought that there is going to be these two devastating world wars waiting. It was based on this idea. It is a Nietzsche's philosophy which Hitler also followed. The idea of the supremacy of the race. But now we will find in biology, even with Swami, it's very interesting. Swami Vivekananda, in those days, in his own words, he's giving a very nice allegory to say that evolution never happened through competition. It has happened through cooperation. Even if accidentally somewhere competition was there, that was not the basic law. It somehow happened, but that's not the basic law. The basic law is cooperation. He gave a very nice allegory, but a wonderful allegory. He says that how evolution happened. He said that competition may give an appearance of evolution, but through competition, never evolution has happened. The example was, he gave an example that suppose a theater is packed, full, crowded theater, some show is going on, some theatrical performance is going on, and suddenly the screen falls, the screen drops, and there's an announcement. The theater has caught fire in some corner. So you all have to immediately vacate the theater. It is going to be on fire. And there's a huge chaos, stampede. Only a few could manage to go out of the theater. So after saying this, the Swamiji Vivekananda is asking, do you think that those few who managed to come out are the evolved ones? Or it was just a chance, most probably they were sitting near the exit with all those chaos. They somehow were not in that stampede, in that clash. Somehow they managed to come out. Do you think it shows a real evolution? It may appear as an evolution, as if they're evolved. The real evolution would be, what he says is very interesting. In those days, the ideas of synergy, win-win situation, to explain the theory of Darwin has not yet started. No one has started propounding those theory of synergy. In those days, Swamiji is saying, just think a different thing, that after the announcement, if all the people think, just the way, even in the aeroplane, they, as an emergency instruction, what they say, stand up, be in queue, follow the line. If that's the thing, then it speaks of cooperation. That let us not think of rushing out. Let us be in queue, silently let us start moving out. Don't you think most of them would have came out? Such a simple example he's giving, but it speaks a wonderful thing, that when we are cooperating with each other, then there's a chance of very mass evolution. The entire thing comes out with the help of cooperating each other. In annihilation, those who come out, that doesn't prove that they are the evolved ones. Just it gives an appearance they came out. In modern biology, they have started saying that competition was of course there. But those who started cooperating within themselves, they started to, they say they sustained themselves. The others got annihilated. Very surprising that one of the theories nowadays they're speaking of, the Neanderthals, the another species were almost like the humans, or like the Homo sapiens. They were as evolved as the Homo sapiens. And now the findings are, the archaeological findings, in certain aspects, they were more developed than us. So one of the theory of their becoming extinct is that clash, but there's a clash never happened. They became too segregated. Even in biology, they say that if you get too segregated, your gene pool becomes too narrow. If you find that there are, even in the human civilization, there are certain sects who marry only within themselves. And you will find now they don't have progenies, they are getting extinct by themselves. So biologically, everywhere it speaks of intermingling. The more you can reach out, intermingle, cooperate, that I have some deficiency, you have some deficiency. But when we intermingle, we get something even more than the individual parts. That's the idea of synergy. That in mathematics, 2 + 2 is 4, but in the biological world, it's never. Suppose a plank of wood, you keep it over the gorge, to cross over the gorge. And most probably it takes 20 kg weight. It can withstand 20 kilo weight. And now if you keep another plank over it, that one plank, the same plank over it, mathematics will say, now it can sustain 40 kilo. But it has been found, always it has been found, that it actually can withstand more than 40, maybe 60, maybe 80, maybe double, maybe even more than that. What it speaks, that what is synergy? When the individuals coalesce, synchronize, cooperate, the total strength is much, much greater than all the summation of the individual strength. So that is synergy, synchronous energy. And that has resulted in the evolution. And that's one of the basic law which Bhagavad Gita is speaking is behind the creation, this yajna. That whatever you do with a sense of yajna, that my life is not just for my own selfish ends. My life is for the collective goodness. So whatever I earn, whatever I do, it is for the collective goodness. And whatever remains from that, of course, I have to sustain myself. It is for me also, I sustain. But all the work which I am doing is not just meant for my selfish end. Even in the life of Swami Vivekananda, to explain this idea of yajna, I will just resort to a story that how we have to enact ourselves in this world. Now, Swami Vivekananda, when he returned from the West to India, along with him, one of his Western disciples, his name was Goodwin. He came with him. Now, Goodwin was not a disciple. He was actually a stenographer. Now, Swami Vivekananda was an inspired person. Whenever he used to deliver lecture, he was delivering lectures, some 8, 10, 12, 15 lectures per week. It was a very, very busy schedule. Everywhere he was called, and he was just like a clarion call of Vedanta. He was just like a roaring lion. He was spreading the message of Vedanta. Now, his followers started feeling that we will just lose all this thing. He's just like an inspiration. He speaks out. There is no record of it. And in those days, there was no thing, there was no recorder or something to record his voice. So in those days, the only way we can keep the record is a stenographer. The stenography has developed. So they were in search of a stenographer, and this Goodwin they found. So he was hired to just keep the notes of Swami Vivekananda, the short notes of Swami Vivekananda, which has now been converted into these works, the 9 volumes, all the things which we at present get of Swami Vivekananda's literature. It's 90% is from the Goodwin's transcription, shorthand notes. So Goodwin was hired, but in the process of taking those notes, he has, after all, hearing the thing, he himself became inspired, and that's how he became a devotee. He was so much ardent devotee of Swami Vivekananda. When he returned to India, he came along with him. Swami Vivekananda was at that time has developed various ailments. It is he who was like a personal attendance always with him. Everyone was impressed to see that how devoted he was, attending on Swamiji's day-to-day needs. He's taking care of him. And then suddenly some of them discovered a thing, that Goodwin is still getting some remuneration. And then the gossip started. After all, he's not a devotee. He is paid for what he's doing. And at last the words reached Goodwin. And hearing that, Goodwin immediately agreed. He just said, yes, what you are saying is true. I do get some remuneration. And then what he said is something very valuable. He told, I have an old mother. I'm not, he was not married. He was a bachelor. He had an old mother back in UK. When he came from there, mother was still there. She was alive. And for her sustenance, I have to send some money to her. And Swami Vivekananda is kind enough to provide some money to me, which I sent to her. I do take some money from Swami Vivekananda. Then he's saying, but let no one think that for that money, I serve him. The service is just the output of my heart. Yes, for my sustenance, Swamiji is kind enough to give me some money. I provide it to him. But no one should think that it is just a mercenary thing. And in this attitude, we will find, if we all take this attitude in our day-to-day work, that my skills, my talents, many have. It's not me alone. Even there are many unfortunate ones who have most probably better skills than me, better intelligence than me, but didn't get that opportunity. I got. Why not I take it as an opportunity, as a service to serve, not just to exploit, that whenever I get with my skills, I use it only for my selfish end, how much I can exploit instead of that mercenary attitude. This is an opportunity for me to serve others. Of course, in that, I don't forget myself. I have to serve myself also. So after serving others, there will be an affluence. I don't need that everything. So I don't keep everything for me. I keep, of course, to sustain myself. The rest is there for the welfare of all, my family, my friends, my neighbor, as much as I can reach out. And that's the idea of yajna, selfless work in Bhagavad Gita, which has been expounded in the 3rd chapter. It starts with that idea. And we were discussing very elaborately this idea, which has been spoken of in Bhagavad Gita. And the 13th, the last conclusive sloka of that idea of yajna was the 13th, the 16th. 14th and 15th will give an example. So what this 13th sloka was? Yagya Shishta. Now let us go to that sloka. Yagya Shishta Shina Santo. Yagya Shishta. The remnants of Yagya, Asina, the eaters. The eaters of the remnants of Yagya. Now, if you take it in a limited sense, still people are doing that. All the religions, that elaborate offering will be there. And after that, you know well that the God who is sitting in the altar, he is not going to eat all those things. At last, I will have the prasadam. So his elaborate prasadams are there. And we think that's the religion. That should be nice offering. And after that, we will have a nice feast. And that is Yagya Shishta. Just see, it actually ends up in utter selfishness, where I know the one who I'm offering is not going to have a single bit of it. The entire thing I will be having. I won't say that it doesn't have any spiritual implication. You have a sense of sublimation. My greed is being sublimed into devotion. That's the good aspect of it. That suppose I buy a mango from the market and simply devour it. It speaks of my greed. But I can sublimate that greed. How? I bring that mango with a sense of devotion. I offer it to the divine. And I then think it has been sanctified by the touch of the divinity. And now I am taking a sanctified food. With that, a sense of devotion do grow. So it's not that totally useless. It do have some implication with all those elaborate rituals. But we are limiting it to a very, very narrow scope of our unfoldment of our character. If we take the idea of yajna in a broader sense, it's not just offering to the deity and just having the prasadam. Yajna Shishta Asina, that whatever I do in this life, it is for the welfare of all. And from that, whatever little remains, that I use for my sustenance. That I do take care of my sustenance, but I don't hold. Rest is in the present problem, the entire problem of the present world is this hoarding. The Occupy movement, which we have heard in the last decade, in the Wall Street Occupy movement. The entire, what is the basic idea behind that movement, that tremendous agitation and movement? That 90% of the wealth of the world is with the 2% of the population. It speaks of that hoarding, the country's law, rules, regulations, everything as if is for the 2% of that population. The 2% of the population is hoarding the 98% wealth of the world. This polarity has been created. Why? Because of extreme consumerism. It's like carcinogen, like in the body, how that cancer cells develop. These cancer cells are like that affluent 2% population who wants only to hoard. In the cost from the body, they are taking the nutrients for their own growth. Their growth is in no way balanced with the growth of the entire body. Their growth is at the cost of the entire body. They are growing beyond the rate in which they are supposed to grow. That ends up in the formation of the tumor. And at last, that ends up as being the cancer, where the patient dies, even that 2% cells, which became carcinogenic, they also die at last. It's not that they can survive. So that's at last, with the death of the body, they also die. So that's what the society is becoming carcinogenic with that polarity. Why? The law is yajna. The divine has told that with yajna, with cooperation you live. If you don't follow, that result is something which we cannot change. That will lead to destruction. If I say I don't believe in gravitation and jump out of a 20-story building, I'm not going to fly. Am I going to fly if I just jump out of a 20-story because I don't believe in gravitation? Law is law. It cannot be broken. Whether I believe in it or not, it has its own consequences. If I jump out of a 20-story building thinking that there is no gravitation, I don't believe, I'm not going to fly. So if I say I don't believe on these ideas, these are all superfluous ideas which has no base. Yes, I can. That's what the world is doing. And the world have started feeling that what we have done till now is a historical blunder. The global warming, everything behind it, you will find is nothing but this rampant idea of consumerism, exploiting nature, exploiting others for my own well-being, And at last, it has totally disbalanced the entire ecosystem, everything. So you will find the idea of yajna is something very, 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 so a pertinent idea in the Bhagavad Gita, that it is the basic law. And law cannot be broken. If you try to break the law, you break yourself. You cannot break the law. So we do not hoard. So when God has created the creation, that's the thing which we are saying, that other creatures are guided by the instinct. If you go to the forest, you will find a lion never hoards. When he catches its prey, the moment it is satiated, it will not look back at its prey. That half-eaten, half-devoured prey will be left aside. It will simply move off. Then the scavengers of the forest, the fox, the owls, they're called the scavengers, they clean whatever is what remains, all the carcasses that are remaining, they will be cleaning off. They will be hiding. The moment the lion leaves, they come, they start devouring. And it's not all, still something will remain. The vulture is sitting in the top of the tree. Everyone has its own share. And as a human being, we go to the market, we find that suddenly that some of the vegetable or something is a bit cheap now. The price has fallen down. I buy a huge amount, bring them. I cannot eat everything. Whatever I eat, remaining is there in that wonderful thing which we have discovered, the refrigerator. It is there for me to have it tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So this idea of sharing, so that is gone. Why? As a human being, we have developed that instinct that has been replaced by our rational brain. We can just say these ideas are nonsense, and that's why we have started hoarding. But the result, can we get rid of that? No. So that's why we need those rhythm, the laws. There comes the perennial philosophy. The more we can recognize them, it is already there. We need not have to, with our modern science, discover those wisdom. It is already there. We have forgotten to recognize them. The more we recognize them, the more it is going to do good for us, because they are the laws. You cannot break them. So do not hoard. This is everywhere. The idea of bhunjate tu aghang papa. This sloka says, yagya shishta ashina santo muchyante sarva kilvishay. Bhunjate tu aghang papa ye pachantyatma karanat. That those who are they're eating sin. Who is eating sin? Those who just cook the food for themselves. Those who cook food only for themselves, ye pachanti atma karanat. Pachanti means to cook food. Atma karanat, only for self. They are just eating. Bhunjate tu aghang. Aghang means sins. So those who cook only for themselves, they eat only sin. The good people lives on the remnants of the yajna. And in that process, they are freed from the sin. They purify themselves. They santo muchyante sarva kilvishay. Kilvishay means all the wrong, the sins. They are muchyante. They get rid of them. They get freed from all the sins. If you are just living on the remnants of the yajna, the moment you start cooking only for yourself, you are eating sin and seal alone. It is just like the food smeared with blood, as if. So that's the idea which, after speaking of that, Bhagavad Gita in the 14th and the 15th sloka will give one example to give the idea of yajna, the chakra. So you will find wonderful this Bhagavad Gita, if you try to understand in its real perspective, it speaks something wonderful. Even nowadays, even in India, as we take these words in a very limited sense, we do something which has as if no meaning. In India, because of, you will find that because as we have exploited the nature, cut off the forest, jungle, the drought or the flood, these are things that become very common. There will be droughts. Year after year, there is no rain. And then some of the propounders of the religion will say that in our Vedas it is mentioned we have to do yajna. And yajna will give rain. You will find that that's what here in the 14th and the 15th slokas they are saying. Annat bhavanti bhutani Parjanyat anna sambhava. The real idea of yajna is given here. The way we take the idea of yajna in a limited sense, that won't give rain. By doing yajna, I am just offering to the devas, and they in return will give rain. From where he will give rain? We have already exploited the nature. The real yajna was there. We have not taken care of that. And now just by doing yajna, the rains will fall. That's not the basic idea. If you take in a broader sense, then that's been indicated in the Bhagavad Gita. What's the broader sense of yajna? Annat bhavanti bhutani. The entire creations, the bhuta, the living beings, comes from anna, from food. Parjanyat anna sambhava. Parjanya means from rain. This food comes from rain. Yagyat bhavati parjanya. From where the rain comes? From yajna. If you take it in a limited sense, again, you are misguided. That by doing yajna, the rain will come. No. That here the yajna is different. The idea of yajna is give and take. That we will come to the discussion. Yagyat bhavati parjanyo, yajna karma samudbhava. And from that yajna comes that when the creation happened, first came karma, first came energy, first came all these actions. And those actions were not some chaotic. They followed certain guidelines. The guideline was yajna. And this from where the karma comes, you will find very interesting. The 15th sloka, karma brahmodbhavam viddhi. So just if you take this process of evolution, from Brahma came karma, from karma came yajna, from yajna came parjanya, the rain, from rain came the crops, from crops, life. So it starts with that divine origin. From Brahma, that all the Shakti, karma speaks of Shakti, energy, that comes from Brahman. From karma comes yajna, from yajna comes rain, from rain comes the crops, from crops, life. So this karma, brahmod bhavam viddhi. Know that all the karma, this energy, the expression of energy in this universe comes from Brahma. Brahmakshara samudbhavam. Brahma, that idea of Brahman is that like the cosmic mind. That cosmic mind has came from that akshara, the immutable ultimate reality. So that Brahman finds expression as the cosmic mind. Within that mind, all the the expression of energy is there, which follows certain guidelines. So that's why tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajna pratishtitam. That whatever you see in this world, know it for certain that everything is established in that yajna. So these 3 slokas, if you translate it that from Brahma comes the karma speaks of all the things which has been enjoined in the Vedas in the form of karma kanda. From those yajnas come rain. You will immediately brush it out. Any scientific people will brush it out. That how is it possible? So if you take the idea of yajna in a broader sense, then what happens? The real yajna is happening if you go to any forest. Just look at the tree. The yajna of give and take is going on. What is the yajna? You will be very interested to, you will be very surprised to know that many of you know, that we think that such huge water body in the form of ocean is there, and the evaporation happens from that ocean body to form clouds. But you will be surprised to know that's a very, very small percentage of cloud comes from that huge water body. The maximum cloud comes from the water, which from the roots, the plant is taking it to its leaves. And from the leaves, the water is being evaporated. It is called evapotranspiration. That constitutes more than 60% of the formation of the cloud. Now you will understand that why the scientists have started saying that afforestation is the cause of the droughts and all this climatic change which is happening. Because the cloud formation is not from that huge water body. The 3/4 of the earth is water body, and we think from there the cloud forms. No. Most of the cloud is formed because of that evapotranspiration, that in the underground the water is there, which through the roots is being carried to the entire plant, and from the leaves, the water is being evaporated. and that evapotranspiration constitutes. Now you will easily understand that if you cut off the trees, how can the rain be there? So where the real yajna is happening, you just in the tree. There's a question of give and take. The rain falls, that goes into the underground water, the same underground water, that just the way in the yajna you are offering oblations to the fire, and the fire in the form of the smoke goes out. Here something which is not visible is going up. What is that? In the form of evaporation from the leaves, that evapotranspiration is happening. Through that, the yajna is continuing. From that you get the rain. So now take it in a broader sense. Instead of doing the yajna, please plant trees. Make the land greener. We have just, Australia has become desert recently. After people started settling here, this out of, you can say that humans, consumerism, greed, that so much plant was totally this cut, and that has resulted in most of this desert. It has become the driest planet in the universe because of now from the government. There is a lot of project for again afforesting is going on. It's a huge scale. So just to learn from our mistakes. So this tremendous, this weather change, everything is happening because we have never given importance to the idea of the yajna in the broad sense, which Bhagavad Gita is describing, following the concept as has been indicated in Shatapatha Brahmana, which is the later part of the Vedas. So if you take the yajna in that, then it speaks of a chakra, yajna chakra. So we may take many things from life, but we must also return. So a person who only enjoys life but does not contribute to it. So this, according to Gita, is a sinner. He is a sensualist. He lives in vain. So that's the thing which Bhagavad Gita is indicating. It will conclude the idea in the 16th sloka. What it is saying? Evam pravartitam chakram. This chakra, pravartitam, the Lord has, it is not we human who have created this chakra, this cycle. Chakra is a cycle. This cycle we have not created. It is there. Something higher than life is there. You may term it as God or whatever it may be. So that's what Bhagavad Gita is saying, that has been started by something which is much larger than life. Much larger than life. Everything is not just what we think. It's something much beyond that our so-called this restricted human life. It has been created by that. Evam pravartitam chakram. This chakra which has emanated from me, from the Lord. Na anuvartayati, the one who doesn't follow that. Aghayur indriya rama. His agha ayu, his life is in vain. It is full of sin. He is just a sensual being. Indriya arama. Moghan partha sajivati. His life is in vain. That life is of no use. So that's the idea of karma yoga, taken from that all-encompassing idea of yajna. If we can understand from that point, then the entire life becomes a yajna. So that's, as Swami Vivekananda used to say, that spirituality can never be a part-time affair. That I go to the church, I follow some rituals, and even nowadays, people have started realizing the importance of meditation. So I lead a reckless life, but I think that just 1 hour or 2 hours of meditation will help me to just revert the damage which I create by the reckless life. Spirituality is not that part-time affair. Whether it's in the form of going to church or having some belief, or nowadays I think I don't believe in organized religion. I'm a spiritual being. I just do some mindfulness meditation. But that has to encompass the entire life. If you're really practicing mindfulness, it is not that just for 1 hour or 2 hours. Are you mindful throughout the day in all your activities or whatever you're doing? So spirituality is not a part-time affair. You cannot say that I'm spiritual and practice spirituality just for some 1 or 2 hours a day. It has to encompass our entire life. And that is possible only when you can change your vision, change your attitude. Instead of taking spirituality, identifying spirituality with some limited practices. You change your perspective, look at the life from a much more broader perspective. And then each and every activity, it's not your activity which defines your spirituality. What's your attitude behind that? That speaks of the spirituality. The attitude, the same work can go on. If I, with my skills, with all my education, if I am a doctor, engineer, I'm a plumber, or I'm even a tradie, whatever I may be, it's not the question of what you are doing, with what attitude you are doing, that speaks of spirituality. And that encompasses our entire work field. Even when I'm going to work, I am doing my spiritual practice, if I do it from that idea of yajna. Otherwise, life is in vain. Know it for certain. We can never get fulfillment from life. This cannot be a mass of patchwork. It can never be mass of that. I just live the life recklessly, and it has created in some tears, and the spirituality is just there to do a patchwork. That can never be. It has to encompass our life. It has to overhaul our personality with a total changing of the perspective. And that's the idea of yajna, which has been spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita. So his or her life is of sin, aghayu. He or she is myopic, delighted only in the sensory pleasures, cannot see what is ahead. It's just like that, there's a marshmallow experiment, very famous. It has been done with the small children, that if you give it a marshmallow, it tends to eat immediately. If you say just wait for some time, I will come back after 10 minutes, I will give you the second marshmallow. All the children are willing to have the second marshmallow, but they cannot wait for 10 minutes. They immediately want to enjoy the sensory pleasures of life. And that's why we forget the long-term goals. The short-term goals deludes us. We are myopic, short-sighted. And that makes us sensuous. All the sensuality is because of our myopic vision. We cannot see what's awaiting. And so renunciation is not a negative term, which means that I just simply relinquish something. It means I relinquish something very trivial for something which is really valuable. It's something positive, that I renounce something trivial for something really valuable which is waiting for me. I am waiting for some far-fetched goals, and for that I leave out some trivial. To get that, I have to live. So we become Indriya Rama because we don't have that idea of yajna, that how it can really help in the prosperity of all, including me, which that all doesn't exclude me. I'm not sacrificing myself for the welfare of others. It is not, that selflessness. I won't say it is selflessness. It is enlightened selfishness, as Swami Ranganathan used to say. You are still selfish. I know I want my good. Of course, I'm not going to good to others at the cost of my own good. I want my good. But I know it for certain that if I follow the basic law of creation, if I follow that law of synergy, my welfare lies in the welfare of others. So I am trying to help others because at last it helps me. So with that attitude, we are bound to go beyond that limited idea of just mere sensual pleasure of the sunset world. And his life, of course, is vain, who cannot have that broad vision. So that's the idea. So that's, even some of the quotations are wonderful. As Mahatma Gandhi used to say, very interesting thing. And we find it is so much, its implication is so important nowadays. He used to say that there is enough in this world to meet human needs, but there is not enough to meet human wants. That all our greeds, the earth doesn't have resource to meet that. It has sufficient resource to meet the human needs, but not the human wants. So that's what is being spoken of with the idea of this yajna. His life is life of extreme polarization. That's useless. That life is going to destroy the entire humanity as such. And the one who thinks he is enjoying at the cost of other, he also will be annihilated. He cannot. No one can stay alone without the prosperity of others. It's impossible. At last, it is going to annihilate the entire human race. We cannot annihilate the entire creation. You know that recently I was seeing some video in the National Geographic that how life has come in the Chernobyl, that nuclear plant, where the humans has been, we thought that because of that radiation, the life is not possible. So all the humans were vacated from there. No one was there. In 20, 30 years, all the buildings, everything has become green. The walls have become green. It's all full of vegetation. The flora, fauna, everything has developed there. We, because of our mistake, we have to be, we had to just leave that place. But it's not that the entire creation has been, being annihilated. The nature has its own way to grow. It has come up, but without others. That we think that we are so important. We decide as if the entire creation, know it for certain, the nature doesn't need us. It continues in its own way. If we have to continue with the nature, we have to follow the law. Otherwise, it is we who will be annihilated. Nature continues. No one can stop the way it wants to find its expression. No one can stop it. It is we who have to cooperate with it. Otherwise, it is we who die. So that's the idea which we find very nicely with the concept of Yajna, as this Bhagavad Gita is trying to explain. Next, Bhagavad Gita, in these ideas, this karma has various layers of understanding. It will take us to a very different dimension where we can experience action, actionlessness, even in action. It is just by going beyond the desires, actions can go with the idea of seek not, avoid not. We go on with our actions. A flow ensues in our life. As if the body, mind, everything is working. I am totally detached. I am as if just in a flow. Nothing is forcing me. And that can give a tremendous amount of bliss, even in our world of action. How is it possible? What's the attitude behind it? How we should lead our life to really enjoy the flow, which can give us the sense of Jivan Mukti, that freedom while living. That generally the religion propounds the idea that if you lead a very good life, pure life, you go to heaven. It is something post-mortal existence. It's after death. It's something future. As if happiness is something waiting for us in the future. But in the Bhagavad Gita, with the idea of this karma, they will give us an idea of instant happiness. It's a cash down payment here itself. Just by being desireless, you can get the bliss out of it here and now in this moment. That's the idea. So you need not have to wait till death. If you have to not keep the happiness something in the future. Here itself you can enjoy. How is it possible? That's the idea. With the layers of understanding, Bhagavad Gita will unfold it from the succeeding slokas, which we will take up again in the next class. So from the 17th sloka, we will take up the other ideas of understanding, which are is encoded in this third chapter, which we'll take up again in the next class. With this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.